WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I am actually in the United States of America, Sonoma, California to be exact. Made from grain to glass in Sonoma County, California, USA. This is called the Second Chance Wheat. And this is handcrafted 70 CL. This is 47%, and no one has done a video about this in English that I could find. Interesting enough, I have found videos about the Sonoma County rye, as well as the Sonoma County West Kentucky Bourbon #1. But no one has done, at least as I could find, about the wheat whiskey. So, since 2010, the guys out there in California, actually Napa Valley, actually more of the wine country have been actually producing here this whiskey. This is, as it says here, the primary grain is unmalted wheat, which they got from Canada, according to my sources online. The secondary grain is malted rye, which they actually got from the UK. Now, the problem is my information online is it was 50% wheat or 51% wheat and 20% rye. Is there corn in here? It's a little bit difficult to find anything, at least for me. Why is it called Second Chance Wheated Whiskey? Because the guys here at Sonoma Distilling actually decided to reuse their casks. So they had their their rye casks, and they reused them as well as some of the bourbon casks. They gave the casks a second chance. I always consider a cask a tea bag. In the bourbon country, we have to use our virgin oak, charred white oak casks once. And then we throw them away, or we sell them to Ireland and Scotland, and they use them. That's called a first fill bourbon cask. And that's like using the tea bag the one time and the second time. Now the third, fourth, fifth time, you can imagine that there's not much of a flavoring factor involved here. The same thing happens here with their rye whiskey casks as well as their bourbon casks. And they put wheat whiskey in there. This is 47%. This is over here in Germany between 55 and 65 euros, which means between $65 and $75. This is whiskey base number 87546. And the interesting enough is they have this alembic pot still. I think it was 120 gallons. I'm not 100% sure about that. And it's double distilled still. They actually use the wood fire, direct firing of the stills. Ooh, like in the good old days. They even mentioned something about the 16th or 17th century on their website. So, yanked from obscurity, unmalted wheat is the focus of the spirit. Twice direct fire pot distilled, then aged in used whiskey barrels. The wheat is given a chance to mature in an optimal decelerated environment, bottled by hand and unfiltered. So what we have here actually in the back is the information needed. This was bottled on the 3rd of May 2014. I just bought this bottle last week. It arrived this week. So over here in Germany, it's been around for 5 years. Imported by Le Maison de Whisky, the House of Whiskey in Paris, France. So it took a while from them to get from France here. It's on sale at the moment. That's maybe why they want to discount it and get rid of it. This was batch number 2, by the way. I think there's batch number 5 or 6 of this already. Cases produced 137, which is a weird way to say how many bottles, because I'm never sure. Is it case 6 or 12? Because you can do both. And this is bottle number 415. So, nosing. Oh, I'm not a great fan of this whiskey, but I am a fan of this. Made in Brooklyn, New York, 77 whiskey, Brooklyn Distilling. Whiskey distilled from New York wheat and aged in American oak barrels, 360 days. I actually bought this on an auction site. Now, the interesting fact is this whiskey is better than this whiskey. But you have to do something to this whiskey to make it actually optimal. So this comes in the 45%. 90 proof. This comes in at 47%. This is really, really nice. I have some marshmallow. I have a little bit of caramel. I have a little bit of butterscotch that's been in the pan a tad too long. I have a little bit of oakiness and a pecans. It's very, very nice. It's a very soft, very, very subtle smoothness in there. A nice whiskey. This is like a C plus whiskey in my book. Very, very nice. Not easily accessible. If you can find it, you want a wheated whiskey. This is 100% wheat, by the way. This is very, very unique. This is very, very nice. I'm fortunate to have it over here. This, on the other hand, is a mixture. It's 51% minimum of wheat. And the problem that we have here is the 47%. So I've done a video of this already in German, so I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be Baralfi, and I'm going to put water in this. Remember when he takes his teaspoons and puts like 1, 2, and then sometimes he puts a third teaspoon in there, and he goes, now it's ready to drink. This whiskey is ready to drink if you put about a teaspoon of water in it after you have like about 2 ounces. It needs to be taken down to about 40%. That is the optimal moment. Everything else is totally out of sync. Everything else is totally just distorted. The rye from the rye barrels is fighting and is just contradicting the wheat and also the bourbon barrels together. It's not very, very nice. But now, taken down to about 40%, you get this interesting, very menthol, eucalyptus, dill, rye smoothness. Is it a great bourbon? No. It's a second chance wheat whiskey. This is an oddball. This is an exotic whiskey. This is not your run-of-the-mill whiskey. But taken down to 40%, roundabout, it turns into a palatable, drinkable, almost enjoyable whiskey. Now, the only thing is, the whole time I get like a little bit of pine cone, you know, that pine scent stuff you put in the toilet after you go to the bathroom. It has that artificial pine moment in there as well. And it has a little bit still of that milk. You know, the baby when they burp and there's a tiny little bit of white stuff on your towel underneath your shoulder. That little bit of that baby puke. It's a milk acidy product. But it's not a fantastic, but it's a fascinating nose. There's a lot going on here, and it's something I find intriguing, to be honest. Even on the palate. Dill, once again. A little bit of the menthol. A pecan, vanilla. My brain really is a wacky thing sometimes. Turkey fat. Thanksgiving, the drippings before you make the gravy out of the drippings. Turkey drippings. Really that fatty skin of the turkey that's been basted over 6 to 8 hours. That's what I'm getting here as well. It's actually a fairly decent whiskey. Different. It doesn't fit in the categories of bourbon. It's not a Scotch. It's not an Irish. It's not even a Japanese. It's a wheated oddball. But I like it. Now, I'm going to drink it pure, as the bottle intended it. I'm not even real sure if the producers intended it to be 47%. Now, I did a rant and a rave in my German video, and I talked about all the sweat, blood, and tears that went into this bottle. Literally. I mean, come on. The guys sourced the grain. They hand-fired the stills. They cleaned the stills, got out all that yuckiness that's left over, re-stilled the first distillation, put it into these second filled barrels, let it in there, hand filled the bottles, labeled this, sent it off over here to France, sent it off to northern Germany, and I tasted it. I was like, yucky. But then I just decided to give it a second chance, and I put that water in there. I was like, hey, this isn't that bad. Now, the 47% on the nose, it's one of the things is like, oh no, do I really have to? And then I remember having Cody Rye whiskey at the very beginning. I think it's from Iowa. And I kept on talking about when you go to the men's urinal, you can sometimes have these little, we call them over here in Germany, we call them little stones. We put in there to eliminate the smell, and they're like a little bit of a lemony type of chemical smell. That's what I'm getting here the entire time. It's terrible. But it's very easy to remedy the problem. Pour your glass. You add, I don't have a teaspoon, I'm sorry, Ralphie's better. I have these nice little things here. I add dilute it down to 40%. I nose it. Interesting. I taste it and it goes, oh, interesting. It's a C-. Before it was an F. I tasted the first time, I was like, F. Value for money, F, F, F. And then I went, this is actually almost like a D++, C-. An interesting whiskey. A very, very interesting whiskey that you can spend some time with. You can get to know it. You can actually get around to it. I think I read one person who wrote a review online. He said, oh, this is a whiskey that is different. And this is a whiskey I'm going to use every once in a while during the week just to shake up my palate, get used to something else, and go back to my normal bourbon. He actually then came back 2.5 years later and wrote, haven't touched it since, no need to. And that's a shame because with the water you can actually do that and find something very, very nice. My question of the day is, what whiskeys have you ever had? Bourbon, Scotch, Japanese, Irish, anything else, European whiskeys that have totally transformed into something fantastic or at least decent after you put water in them. This was I'm going to call it like a Frankenstein whiskey. At the beginning it's like, ooh, and then you transform it with diluting it down to 40%. It's like, oh, a Jekyll and Hyde type of moment. Which whiskeys have you had like that? I personally had some experience of, I need to find my bottle here. Actually, I have it here. Tamdu 10. I really have the feeling that the sherry is too distorted. If I take it down to like 40%, this is actually at 43%. I took it down like 35%. It turns into this magnificent drinking whiskey that it has so character and so complexity, so much. So many layers of complexity that it's just fantastic. But at the 43%, it just kind of goes, oh. And I've had a few other whiskeys in my life as well where it's just been just a shame that they picked the wrong strength to put it in the bottle. My personal opinion. Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell button if you want. Wednesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my videos are published. Every once in a while, I'll surprise you with a live stream 4 or 5 times a year. Thank you very much for watching. All the best, and see you soon. Bye-bye.